Welcome to Empowered Health. This week we have another show packed with information to help you empower your health.
That's right. Today we are going to learn more about spinal stenosis and talk about how to take care of your eyes when you're swimming.
But first, let's take a look at the inspiring story of Liz Joyce.
I didn't really take it too seriously because I was 24 and thought, oh, well, I'm healthy, I work out, I eat well, and this is just going to be one of those things that it just goes away. And then I did some, blood work months later and found that my hemoglobin count was half of what it should be, and I realized then that I had a really serious problem.
That serious problem was ulcerative colitis, a form of inflammatory bowel disease.
Well, because of the inflammation that goes on in my intestine, and it causes a lot of problems digesting food, which leads to things like a buildup of gas and stuff like that. But also another big problem that people who have my condition have is that we have sometimes a hard time controlling our bowel movements. So they can be like, when I was really sick, I had a really hard time with it.
But Liz didn't take her newfound health challenges lying down.
I got really involved in my healthcare. I became my own advocate and I started doing a ton of research, and I just stayed really on top of making sure that I took my medications when I needed to, that I listened to my body and I took care of myself and rested if I needed to. And I also looked into some kind of dietary things as well.
Diet is huge. Liz eats a diet rich in lean proteins, fruits, and vegetables, which she steams because it makes it easier to digest them. She limits carbohydrates and avoids fried foods and foods high in sodium and spices.
I also take some omega oils, which I find helps with inflammation. And the thing that I've taken that's been a bit of an alternative sort of source of help for me is a supplement called curcumin, and it's a turmeric extract. And that's the thing that I found kind of took what I was taking for medications and took it to the next level where I felt I was fully healed up.
The next level for Liz is getting really involved with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of Canada.
Mentally, it's played a big role for me. So being a part of that foundation and volunteering has exposed me to a lot of people and people who have children who have my condition, and we're able to talk and we've become really close friends. And also, for me, it gives me a sense of being proactive about it.
Coming up on Empowered Health.
Many of the alkaloids and chemical compounds in tea have proven medicinal uses. So let's look at the science.
Welcome back to Empowered Health. We're going to be talking about spinal stenosis, a condition that affects many people as they age.
But before we get to that, Randy Shore is back on the show to talk about the health benefits and health myths about the power of drinking tea. Randy?
Tea has a 5,000-year track record as a medicinal herb that we know of, and probably a lot longer. In traditional Chinese medicine, tea is used to treat everything from inflammation and fatigue to bladder infections and cancer. It's long been considered a cleansing agent and a mild natural antidepressant. We know that tea supplies about the biggest payload of antioxidants of any food or drink out there. Many of the alkaloids and chemical compounds in tea have proven medicinal uses. So let's look at the science. Tea contains caffeine, not quite as much as a cup of coffee, but more than enough to give you a stimulating effect. Tea also contains theanine, an amino acid that's known to change alpha waves in the brain and promote relaxation. That's why a hot cup of tea gives you that rare combination of calm and energy. Tea also contains theobromine, which has been used for about 100 years to treat edema, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease. So, if the concentrated compounds in tea can be used to treat disease, will drinking a dilute brew in the morning actually make you healthier or live longer? There has been promising research into antioxidants called catechins. Studies of lab mice and of real people in the real world suggest that catechins provide a protective effect against stroke, cancer, diabetes, and heart failure. Green tea catechins lower total cholesterol and so-called bad cholesterol in human trials. What about the big C, cancer? Plenty of laboratory studies show that the compounds in green tea have the potential to fight cancer. Sadly, studies in which people drink green tea show no evidence of a protective effect against stomach or colorectal cancer. Breast cancer studies of both green and black tea are a little confusing. Green tea appears to provide a modest protective effect, while black tea actually increased the risk of breast cancer. Now, before you throw out all your black tea, let me say this. Scientists use carefully designed experimental paradigms and razor-sharp statistical tools to detect very tiny effects. Effects so small, they might not extend or shorten the life of one person in 1,000. Individual studies of the same phenomenon often have conflicting results, and that's very much the case when it comes to tea. It appears to increase the risk of heart disease in the UK, while lowering the risk in Europe. What that means is that tea alone isn't likely to deliver very much benefit all by itself. There's a lot more going on here. A recent analysis of 49 studies of green tea as a weight loss aid was also inconclusive. Drinking green tea produced weight loss, but it was almost exactly the same effect as drinking a glass of water before each meal. So if you like tea better than water, it'll work just as well. I'm Randy Shore for Empowered Health.
Your back affects your daily health. Welcome to another installment of Your Spine, Your Health.
Because you have a spine, it's important to understand what chiropractic care means to your health. Your health always starts with a regulatory college. In this case, the College of Chiropractors of BC serves to ensure you receive the appropriate diagnosis and care from a qualified chiropractic doctor today and tomorrow. That's also why BC's chiropractors fund research and education. Today, I want to introduce you to Dr. Carlo Amendolia, who's doing some important research on ankylosing spondylitis.
So we're doing some work in the area of spondylitis, and also one of the spondylitis conditions is called ankylosing spondylitis, and it's an inflammatory back condition. And inflammatory, it means that it's an autoimmune disease where the body doesn't know the difference between self and foreign, and it actually attacks itself.
In this case, the condition attacks the joints in the spine and gradually fuses them together. Patients develop a rigid posture, ultimately causing lack of mobility. Ankylosing spondylitis is difficult to recognize and can go undiagnosed for 8 to 12 years.
There are some amazing drugs that have been being used over the last 10 years called biologics. And these biologic drugs have actually revolutionized the treatment of inflammatory arthritis in that they help to control the inflammatory process. However, what these drugs have not been shown to do, although they've helped improve pain, improve quality of life, they have not been shown to be effective in reducing the fusion or the ankylosing of the condition.
What Dr. Amendolia is doing is combining an exercise program with the drugs in order to reduce the risks of the acute posture associated with the condition. A careful procedure of spine adjustment is also used.
And so the exercise program is really geared towards, again, lifestyle and self-management, where patients are doing things sitting, standing, walking, sleeping in a posture that minimizes their risk to fuse in a flexed, stooped posture. We do techniques called push-relax techniques, which help patients regain some of the flexibility in their neck. And we use these techniques and we teach them how to do it on their own. And we try to use this kind of neurological and kind of tricking the muscle to relax so we can get an opportunity to stretch it even further.
The idea of these techniques combined is to kickstart patients to be able to self-manage their condition and achieve better results overall.
We're also developing tools for our patients to actually self-monitor.
As you can see, it's not just about what we can do for you today. We're working to build a better tomorrow with better health outcomes for you. The College of Chiropractors of BC sets the standards for safety, outcomes, and your informed consent.
Hey guys, this is your Simple Fitness Tips. My name is Jameson Wolf and this is Simona Marion. Today we're going to show you how to perform cardio as a means of warming the body for your warm-ups. Performing a bit of cardio before your workout can be beneficial in colder climates as it can increase internal body temperature. This promotes blood flow to the muscles and to the joints, which can prepare yourself for activity and avoid injury. Now, you can train anywhere between 50 to 70% of your max heart rate, and for 5 to 10 minutes. This is a great supplement to your dynamic stretching and foam rolling. You can do this on the treadmill or any other kind of form of cardio, or simply jog in one place. All right, see you in the next episode.
After the break.
So you have to remember that when you're jumping into some of those different pools, you're actually jumping into a new environment. Not to mention, you're also exposing the eye as well.
You're watching Empowered Health. Next up, we're going to revisit our reoccurring sleep segment and talk about how sleep affects performance, especially in high-pressure situations.
Now that should be a good one, Michelle. And be sure to stay tuned after the break, where I'll be getting some great tips on making a super healthy breakfast.
Joining me now is Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor. Today we're going to talk about sleep and performance, work, play, and play in the bedroom. How important is sleep to be able to really function at your best?
So sleep has a direct effect on every type of performance you can imagine, whether it's a physiological performance or a mental performance. So if you're playing a video game or doing an activity, both are going to be dramatically affected by your ability to sleep.
What about your ability to concentrate and think when you're at work?
Absolutely. So historically, we used to see that people would say, well, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night, and I was working late, and I'm really dedicated to my work. And what we find is those people aren't making great decisions at work. So we know that there's a direct correlation between your ability to make a good decision and how much sleep you got. So oftentimes I'm telling employers, let your employees get the sleep that they need. Overtime might not necessarily be the best idea.
Is it important for employers to look at sleep in relationship to individuals, to say, you figure out what your circadian rhythm is, and if you're an early starter, come in early. If you're later, then come in later.
Absolutely. So we know that there are people that we call larks, who like to get up early, and owls, who like to stay up late. And so a lot of employers, especially people who have shift work in their regime for their business, should look at, is this person a night owl or an early morning person, and then try to get them to their shift appropriately. But let's say they're not shift workers and you kind of have the average person who's coming into work. There are some people who are definitely going to have their more productive times in the morning, and those will have their more productive times in the afternoon. So finding out who those people are and kind of scheduling when they're supposed to make their decisions accordingly can be very effective.
You talked about the ability to make good decisions when you're sleep deprived. What about creativity, if let's say that's part of your work?
So here's a great study done out of Lübeck, Germany, that found that the more sleep deprived you are, the less creative you are. So if you have a position that requires creativity, whether you're in advertising or art or whatever it happens to be, you want to get those hours of sleep. Yet some of the most creative people I know don't get their creative inspiration until 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's a little bit of a dichotomy there. And sometimes we have to tell these people, okay, if that's when you get your inspiration, that's great, but we need you to take a nap.
So it's about finding the right circadian rhythm for
Yes.
you, and then working in conjunction with your body.
Yeah, you know, our bodies are kind of programmed a certain way. It's hard to change your circadian rhythm. There are different therapies that we can use if somebody's got a sleep disorder that's a circadian rhythm disorder, but generally speaking, you kind of are who you are. You're either a night owl or an early morning lark, and it's going to be a little bit hard to change that.
Sleep and sex, is there a connection there as well?
There is. We know that the more sleep deprived people are, the lower their libido, so the less desirous they are for actually engaging in sex. You know, it used to be, not tonight, I have a headache. Now it's not tonight, I'm just too tired. We see that happen quite a bit. When you start to look at the amount of sleep that people are getting versus how many times a month, let's say, that they're having sex with their bed partner, the relationship becomes very apparent very quickly.
Thank you for joining us
Thank you.
on this segment of Empowered Health. Ah, swimming. It's so much fun. Even as exercise, it's fun. It's something we all seem to enjoy, especially in the summer.
Water is one of those things that sustains life, and included in that life is different bacteria, different microbes. So you have to remember that when you're jumping into some of those different pools, you're actually jumping into a new environment. Not to mention, you're also exposing the eye as well.
Salt water irritates the eye quite a bit. So it's normal for you to go into the water and have red eyes. Lubricating the eyes with artificial tears after you go swimming, it's a great idea to kind of overcome that a little bit.
That means 1 drop of artificial tears in each eye. That's it. So what else could you do to make sure swimming doesn't beat up your eyes? Well, for one, pay extra attention to and then discard the contact lenses you wore when swimming in any type of water.
Contact lenses work like a sponge. They soak up whatever's in the water and slowly releases it out into the eyes throughout the day. So once you do your swimming session, you should throw those contacts out and put a fresh pair in.
The great beauty of a daily contact lens is that you can take it out of your eye as soon as you get out of the pool and throw it out, as opposed to something like, say, a 2-week or a monthly lens where you're going to be more prone to keep that lens and then continue to place those microbes against the surface of your eye.
By now you're probably asking, what about chlorine? How damaging is that to my eyes?
A lot of people actually just grin and bear it and they go through it. Chlorine isn't really damaging to the eyes. Some people think it is, but it's not really that damaging. The quantities that it's in pools, it shouldn't be damaging to the eyes. Freshwater, you know, it's probably easier on the eyes. However, freshwater can also harbor bacteria.
Your best bet when swimming, you guessed it, goggles.
Significant advantages to wearing goggles. Sometimes it's a matter of better visibility, so there's different tints that can be in goggles that can be very helpful. Additionally, it does protect the eye as well from different things that are surrounding you at the time.
So to recap, the best thing to wear is goggles, and if you do wear contact lenses while swimming, dispose of them as soon as you're out of the water.
You know, you're thinking about your eyes. That's basically what it boils down to. You're thinking about how your eyes are working in the environment that they're in, and that's a great step right there, seeing how they're reacting to salt water, chlorine water, fresh water, and you're becoming aware of your eyes and then hopefully aware of your vision and how well you're seeing.
Coming up on Empowered Health.
Today what we're going to do is we're going to create a morning breakfast using millet, and it's going to be a millet cereal breakfast.
This cooking and nutrition portion brought to you by Save On Foods.
Registered holistic nutritionist Julia Olton always has a great recipe to share. Let's see what she's got this time. Julia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Today what we're going to do is we're going to create a morning breakfast using millet, and it's going to be a millet cereal breakfast. So what this is going to be, we're going to cook some millet with apples and a little bit of chopped prunes and cranberries with some almond milk. We need to chop, I usually use 2 apples in my recipe, and this makes enough for you to make a big pot up. Okay. And then you put the leftovers in the fridge, and then you just heat it up for each day that you want it. It's much quicker. So if you want to just chop that up into little bite-sized pieces, if you think the night before, if you think you're going to make a millet cereal, you can soak the millet and make it nice and soft before you start. It cuts down on the cooking time. Right. So I'm just going to get rid of this water here in the sink.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put the millet in the saucepan.
And that's going to cook for about 20 minutes.
This is going to cook for 20 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm going to add in that saucepan, excuse me, I'm going to reach across here, 2 cups of almond milk.
So you could also use regular dairy milk if you wanted to.
Regular milk, you could use rice milk, you could use water, although I've never tried water. So 2 cups of almond milk in there. And I'm going to add the apples, the prunes.
The dried cranberries?
And the dried cranberries. They're all going to go in.
Okay.
So what we have in here now is we've got our almond milk. We put our apples, our chopped apples. We've got chopped prunes and cranberries and some cinnamon.
Right.
And what we're going to do is, you don't have to stand here and stir it for 20 minutes, but you do need to kind of keep your eye on it on low heat and let it cook for 20 minutes. And you might find you need to add a little bit more moisture.
Milk, okay.
So you want it to be about the consistency of oatmeal when you're done.
Okay.
And this is what it should look like at the end. You can see it looks kind of like oatmeal.
Right.
And you don't want it too dry. If you want it more liquid, you can add more liquid to it.
Right, exactly.
So this is after about 20 minutes. So we're going to bring it over here and serve it. And what I like to do, but you could serve it just as simply as in the bowl.
Right.
So I usually add a little bit of whatever kind of milk I have.
To give it that cereal kind of a feel, that kind of a look, yes.
And then I think it's always good to add a little bit of nuts or seeds or something on the top.
It just adds a bit of a crunch to the breakfast.
And pumpkin seeds are really very healthy. And if you want, a little bit of Greek yogurt on top is also very good. Okay. So I'm going to let you
taste this.
Give that a whirl and see what you think.
All right. Morning millet. tastes really good. I mean, the taste of the millet is actually really good and gives you a different kind of a flavor from the oatmeal.
It's a bit nutty, and it definitely will stick with you for the morning. You won't be hungry. It's a very, very nutritious, filling breakfast.
Well, thank you for being on the show, Julia, and thank you for yet another amazing recipe.
Thank you.
We'll see you again.
Yep.
Most people in North America are not familiar with millet. Registered dietitian Crystal Higgins is with us today to tell us more about this super seed. Crystal, welcome to the show.
Thanks, BJ.
So what is millet? Where does it come from?
Millet is an ancient grain, and it's actually native to, you probably guessed it,
India.
and also Africa and Asia. It's very tiny and round, and we definitely see more of the yellow variation here, but it does vary in color, white to gray, and of course yellow and almost red in color too.
Crystal, it almost looks like a bird seed. How might you use it?
Well, it's funny you say that because millet is the main component in most bird seed, but it's not just for birds, it's also for us as well and can be very healthy. You can use it in a variety of different things. You can use it just as you would rice, so almost like a couscous in texture. If you cook it a little bit more, it turns into a similar consistency to, say, mashed potatoes. And you're probably familiar with this last one, which is grinding it into a flour and making rotis.
Exactly, and the roti made from the millet flour, it's usually a bit dry in consistency and tastes really good with butter. Anything tastes good with butter.
Sure does.
What's the way to cook it?
The best way to cook it is to actually boil it. So you just take 1 part millet and 2 to 3 parts fluid and bring it to a boil, cook it and simmer for about 20 to 25 minutes. If you don't have that much time in the morning and say you want to make a breakfast porridge out of it, you can set your slow cooker the night before and add things like milk, nuts, fruit, seeds, and that will balance it out quite nicely.
Absolutely. And nutritionally speaking, what do you have to say about millet?
Well, millet being a seed, so sort of similar to quinoa, it's actually quite high in complex carbohydrates and full of B vitamins and fiber and magnesium, and of course a very good alternative for people that are following a gluten-free diet. Just gives more variety and more options.
Crystal, thank you for being on the show and thank you for telling us about millet.
My pleasure.
See you
Thank
again.
you.
Well, that's all for this episode of Empowered Health. It's always amazing to me how you can incorporate a whack of extra fruit in your recipes.
Well, that's true, Michelle, and especially when you're cooking with a slow cooker or a crock pot. Well, be sure to keep in touch by following us on Twitter, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.